This programme was produced at and first aired on MPR, Manawatū People's Radio, with support from New Zealand On Air. Ka pai irarangi te motu, MPR. If you're enjoying this podcast in Manawatū, you could make your very own, just like this one. NPR exists to help people like you tell your story or share your passion on air and online. Check out npr.nz for more information.
It's time for our Monday serial, A Respectable Veneer, written by Rachel Doré, published by Upstart Press and narrated by Romy Hooper. This serial has been made possible by funding from the Earle Creativity and Development Trust, with collaboration from Manawatū People's Radio. A Respectable Veneer is a story about love and courage, but we remind you of our regular content warning. There are elements of violence and references to child abuse. An additional trigger warning for this episode. This episode refers to sexual assault. Last week, Janice's intentions for a fun evening together turned sour when Ruby's memory tipped her back to 1944 when she was 16 years old and the night that her life changed forever.
Morning sounds were coming from the kitchen. The tick and groan of hot water going through the pipes. A cupboard carelessly banged shut. The clang of pots. Ruby fumbled for the light cord, blinking in the electric glare, and forced herself to rise. In the gap where the curtain didn't meet the window frame, the morning was still night black. Time to get up. She gave Edie's shoulder a rub. Edie squinted and grumbled. I don't want to get up in the night. It's not night, it's just early. Hurry up. If we get to the kitchen quickly, I'll make us both some porridge without lumps in it. They shivered under their coats on the way to the bathroom and got their ablutions over quickly. Back in their dank little room, Ruby pulled the bedclothes up and ran a hand over the cover, smoothing out ridges of blankets while Edie finished dressing. Is it Thursday? Said Edie. Goody! We're going to stay with Janice again tonight, aren't we? We'll see. Ruby's mind was on Frank and all the things they might do when they got to his place. She could buy food and put it in the larder, knowing no one would take it. Cook whatever they'd like for breakfast, and for Frank too, if that's what he expected. What was he going to expect? She stretched and shook the thoughts away. Don't count your chickens. They heard the radio before they got there. Pim was drinking tea and eating toast over a newspaper. Muttering Maisie was by the stove tipping a frying pan this way and that, splashing black hot fat over fried eggs. A young man Ruby hadn't seen before was slicing bread badly. Give it here, you lummox! Pim grabbed the knife off him. You'll ruin the whole loaf! Going by the dishes in the sink and the cigarette butts in the ashtray, people had already been in and out. Good morning, Auntie Pim, said Edie. Mum's going to make us porridge. Good morning, Poppet, said Pim warmly. Weather report says it might rain, but I reckon it's too windy for rain. You won't mind, will you, said Ruby, if I just make a little pot for Edie and me? Go for your life. The tea's fresh. Thanks. I seen you and our Mr. Woods getting along last night, said Pim. About time he found someone. It's not good for a young man like that to stay a bachelor too long. Pim frowned with emphasis, looking over her shoulder to see that Edie was over by the radio, out of earshot. She lowered her voice. Turns him queer. Ruby feigned ignorance. You mean peculiar? How? Pim glanced over her shoulder. No, dearie, I mean fruity. Unnatural. I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, said Ruby. I admit I was worried, said Pim. I'm fond of him, and I want the best for him. You've caught a good one just in time. Our Mr. Woods is a bony fidey gent. Rare these days. I say, taking my name in vain again. Douglas came in, as affable as ever. Perhaps he'd only heard the last few words. Toast, Mr. Woods? Pym did not seem embarrassed. Capital, he said. I'll make another pot of tea. If Pym and the others were beginning to imagine that she and Douglas were on the verge of a romance, she had nothing to lose by greeting him with enthusiasm when he followed them to the dining room with his breakfast and newspaper. Edie, take your bowl out, said Ruby, and ask Auntie Pym if you can have another piece of toast. Edie wandered out with her empty bowl, and Ruby put her hand on Douglas's arm. He put his head over the screen of his newspaper, eyebrows comically raised. I'd like you to take me to talk to Frank, said Ruby. Tonight. Tonight? Quite off the block. Too quick? I want a chance to have a proper talk with him without Edie. She can stay with Janice. She's house-minding in Burke Street. Why don't we make it tomorrow? He got to his feet. I should ring Frank. All right. We might stay with Janice till the weekend. You'll have to drive me back there afterwards. Tell you what, he said. Why don't I pick the three of you up from Vardo's and shout you all to fish and chips? I know a rather good little restaurant. I'll talk to Janice. He had that pleased, boyish look again. I can drop those two off after the restaurant, and you and I can pop over to Frank's. What about it? 3 young ladies out to tea. Ha! Janice and Edie were delighted at the prospect of going out for tea. Ruby was a little chagrined at their excitement over spending an hour or two together without her, while Douglas took her to Frank's. Can I have a bubble bath again? Squealed Edie. Madam's hands clapping as she came up the stairs sent Janice scurrying to the blocking room. There is something new I would like you to do, Edith, Madam announced with a glance at the blocking room door. Edie jumped up and followed her to the shelves, tidily stacked with rows of matching white boxes. Shall I help? Ruby asked. No. I will show Edith the work she will do, Madam said, handing Edie one box after another to put on the table. And, Ruby, you will take out that hat you put aside. The one I spoiled? Yes. You will see, Madam said. I have an experiment for you, Ruby. This you may find interesting, perhaps enjoyable. We shall see. First, Edith will help me prepare. Each box contained ends of ribbon and trims, odd petals of flowers and leaves made of silk and other fabrics. Lengths of ribbon scraps in greys and blacks were in one box together. Pinks and reds were in another. Blue shades took up 3 boxes. Rust browns and oranges were in one box. Browns, from beige to chocolate and taupe, took up 2 boxes. There were greens and several boxes of yellows and various shades of cream. Many shades of white filled a separate box. When Edie and Madam had finished, the open boxes took up the length of the work table. Better than paints, cried Edie. No, Madam announced as she picked up the white satin hat. The pink patch of diluted blood was greying. She adjusted it on the poupette. What you may use is here. I have some interest in seeing what you do. Edith can help you sort what you need and put them away as you go. Can Mum use some beads as well? Edie's eyes were bright. In moderation, said Madam. For now, do not stitch anything. Use the pins to hold the trims, so I can see and judge your plan. Before morning tea time, I will see how you do. She clapped a staccato with her hands. Spät! Quick, quick! For the second time in one morning, Ruby had nothing to lose. Whatever she did, she couldn't ruin the hat any more than she had done. This was more than covering up a stain. It was transforming the hat, giving it a completely different life. This was playtime. "A cream colour first," Ruby said. With the efficiency of a seasoned assistant, Edie pulled a handful of ribbons, trims, and petershims from the box, separated them and laid them out so Ruby could see each one. Madam had wasted nothing. There were various textures, widths, and lengths, some of them tiny enough to cover a button. Under instruction, Edie did the same with the greens. In silence, Edie watched the pinning, ruching, straightening, and pleating of ribbon, as Ruby put one next to another and then changed her mind. Pieces of ribbon were positioned and pinned. Black for grief. Grief for the young men wasted. Grief for her past self. Pale green for the vagaries of hope. A narrow strip of darker green for the occurrences that intercept plans and unpredictable good things. Yellow-green chartreuse, which made her think of the wonder of life, something she hardly remembered thinking about before. Trims were repositioned, some removed altogether, until she was satisfied. The stain was hidden, not forgotten. "Beads?" Edie pushed a bottle forward. "Not this time." "Not even there? And there and there?" "It's not meant to look fussy. I want it to look modern." Ruby scrutinised her creation. Nothing lost but a couple of hours if Madam didn't like it. It was a wonder that Madam had given her the chance at all, when there was other work waiting. "It's not morning tea time yet. Shall I tell Madam you've finished?" "No. Let's get all these bits back in the boxes. That's part of the job, remember? And we should put the lids on, to show we're finished." Madam threw her hands in the air with an exclamation when she saw the result. If Ruby hadn't seen Madam's eyes light up, she might have assumed her employer was horrified. Madam turned it over to examine the inside, where the cut ends of ribbon were secured with a trim of petersham, ready to be turned under the lining. "It is art." Madam held the hat aloft, turning it on her hand. "I've been having other ideas. Your mamma is a very clever woman, Edith." Madam put the creation back on the pipette and stepped back. "You are lucky to be able to help her. You will learn things, I think." Edie glowed. "You see, Ruby," said Madam, "not once did you think about what is outside this room. All angst, your anxieties, they dissolved into air. Your focus was complete. And here is the result. Beautiful." With that, she kissed Ruby's cheek lightly. "The stain is there, though," Ruby said. "It is of no consequence," said Madam. "Sit. I shall tell you a story." Ruby leaned her elbows on the table. Edie settled next to her. "There was once a woman. This was far away from here. A distant place. Terrible, terrible things happened to this woman. So she took her young daughter deep into the forest. They made a little house of branches and dried grasses and mud. Every day they looked for things to eat, and they got water from a stream. They tried to grow a few vegetables, and they found herbs. If they were lucky, a passing woodsman gave them a rabbit to cook. Sometimes a piece of cheese or crust of bread. One night, she looked at her sleeping daughter and said to herself, "This is not a life for her." So she decided she would make their lives beautiful, and she did. "Is that it?" said Edie. "Don't be rude," said Ruby. "Well, my dear," said Madam, "this woman, she was very clever. She made beautiful things for herself and her daughter. They found pretty stones and flowers, and they made toy animals out of twigs. In summer, they decorated their hut with berries. In the autumn, they collected leaves of yellow and red and gold, and leaves the color of shining copper. Soon they forgot they were hungry. They learned how to make a beautiful life, and they were happy. "What happened to the woman?" asked Edie. "They shot her." "What about her daughter?" said Edie, before she could be stopped. "Her they did not shoot." Ruby and Edie looked at each other. Edie opened her mouth to speak, and Ruby silenced her with a nudge. "Now, Ruby," said Madam, "until morning tea time you can do a little stitching. The rest you will do in your own time. There is more important work on your tray waiting. Also, we have a new order, 2 special hats for a distinguished client." She reached the stairs and turned back. "Edith, there is quite a good little cake shop around the corner. I think we should all have chocolate eclairs for morning tea. Come." Edie, who had become solemn, leapt after Madam as quietly as she could. Janice came through to put the kettle on. "Did Madam say something about chocolate eclairs? Something exceptional must have happened." "Thank you." Ruby put her hand lightly on Douglas's arm as they drove back to Burke Street. "I bet Edie will still be up." "Edie certainly enjoyed herself, didn't she?" "I don't just mean taking us out to a restaurant. Thanks for taking me to see Frank tonight." "He can get a bit grumpy now and then. A lot of that is the pain. He didn't used to be like that." He lit another cigarette. "I'm sure it'll be different with the 2 of you there. A pleasant distraction. And with Edie at school and you at work during the day, it's not as though you'll be in his way." "School," said Ruby. "I have to enroll her on Monday. Do you know where Central Normal School is?" Janice said, "Not far, actually. We'll drive past now." "Thanks," said Ruby. "I should thank you," Douglas said. "I'm so pleased everything's going to work out with Frank." "And there's plenty of room. The large room with the sunny annex would do nicely for me and Edie." "I was wondering where he was going to put you," said Douglas. "I think you'll both be happy there." Ruby glanced at his profile as he drove them back to where Janice was waiting. His eyes were fixed on the road, and his face seemed lined. "Edie's going to be excited," she said. "That house used to be so lively, you know." He wasn't going to start crying again, was he? Ruby cleared her throat. "Marry me." She made her voice flat so he might see it as a reasonable, considered solution to his misery. It wasn't something she'd contemplated at all. The spontaneity of it shocked her, and it had come out sounding like a command. "I beg your pardon," he said. "Why don't you marry me?" "What? What on earth are you talking about?" "Listen," she said. "Getting married makes perfect sense. You and Frank need protection, and I want—" She looked at him, sagging in the seat as he was, and decided against admitting that she wanted protection too. "Stability and safety for Edie." "Safety?" Ruby flicked her hand. She might confide in him one day, a lot further down the track. Douglas pulled to the curb. But married?" "A formality," she said. "Nothing more. Registry office. Strangers as witnesses. Then you can move into Frank's. You'll be together. From the outside, we'll look like an ordinary married couple with a child living as Frank's boarders." Douglas switched off the engine. "I'll go on working, of course," said Ruby. "You'll go on selling brushes. No one will know what goes on inside those walls." People will wonder," he floundered. "I mean, a married woman, working." "Oh, for goodness sake." "It could draw unwanted attention. It only takes a hint of gossip." "Aren't there any rooms not being used?" Ruby said. He nodded. "Not that anyone's likely to be going through the place, but one never knows. What if we set one up as scenery? A married couple's room, as insurance," said Ruby. "A few of your things, a few of mine sprinkled about." "Frank won't open his mother's room." Douglas was emphatic. Ruby chewed the inside of her lip. "You told me Mrs. Pierce passed away recently." "Last December." Douglas grimaced and sighed. "Christmas Eve. You must have heard what happened at Tangiwai." Anything she might say seemed either trite or callous. The headlines and photographs had run for days in the nation's newspapers. Wreckage in a river, the remains of a bridge, men wading in the water finding bodies, ruined belongings and Christmas presents washed out to the coast. He offered her a cigarette, lit it for her and one for himself. In the shadow of a shop veranda, a policeman rattled a closed door as part of his night beat and walked on, nodding a greeting to the few passers-by on the pavement. Douglas put the cigarette between his lips and started the engine. "We're going to Burke Street," Ruby reminded him. "There is that other room," he said, as he changed gear. "It's small, though. I could keep my things in there. I'll talk to Frank." "With both of us there, and married, Vi's not going to want to encroach." "I don't know. She's been so used to shrieking that dreadful yoo-hoo and barging in." Ruby exhaled smoke. "Leave her to me. It's about territory. I've read about it. Once I'm living there, I'm sure if I stand up to her, Vi will give way." "You mean an undignified scene?" He gave a lopsided grin. "Shall I imagine howling and fur flying? The pair of you going at it hammer and tongs like a couple of felines?" "When we're lending a hand keeping the place up for him, Vi will soon realise Frank doesn't need her, and she'll stop bothering him. Besides, anyone can see it makes sense for him to rent out the spare rooms." Douglas clicked his tongue. "Perhaps. I can't see her giving him up that easily." "Oh, I think she will," said Ruby. "And people will still talk, you know. The gossip mongers." "Yes, people." She began counting on her fingers. "Well, here are 2 possible stories to circulate, to explain your sudden marriage to someone you've only known for 5 minutes. You thought it was time you had a wife, and saw my advertisement in the newspaper for a husband." "How tragic." "I know. Or I might have seen your advertisement." "I wouldn't." "All right. 3. We met out of town somewhere a while ago. We fell in love." He looked at her. Fondly, she imagined. "You sold me a hairbrush and we've been meeting on the QT until now." "Sordid," he said. "I could lose my job." "How's this? You had a liaison with me before you went in 44, and you forgot about me, and I spent 10 years tracking you down to tell you about the daughter you didn't know you had." It wasn't meant as a serious suggestion. "That's as ridiculous as it is grotesque," he said grimly. Ruby blew a long stream of smoke and wound the window down. She threw her cigarette butt in an arc that reached the pavement. "Don't you think people will tut-tut whatever story gets around?" A column of ash fell off the cigarette that was wedged between Douglas's fingers on the steering wheel. He brushed his knee with one hand. "Drat! I hope I haven't burned a hole in these trousers. He sucked a final drag and dropped what was left from his open window. Ruby rubbed her thumbnail across her teeth. Was his frown and clenched mouth concern for his trousers, or had her proposal shocked him? They turned into Burke Street. That's the house, she pointed. There, the one with the square hedge. He changed gears and slowed to a stop without looking at her. Well then, she said, her hand on the door handle. Forget about what I said. The engine tick, tick, ticked.
You've been listening to A Respectable Veneer, a serialised novel by Rachel Doré, read by Romy Hooper. Listen to the next episode at 8 p.m. next Monday, or for the rest of the series, go to npr.nz/show/respectableveneer, or search for A Respectable Veneer wherever you find your podcasts.
If you enjoy this NPR podcast, please consider subscribing. Our podcasts are available on all major podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, as well as the accessmedia.nz app. Support this show and others like it by giving a donation. For more information, go to www.npr.nz/donate.